Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here for the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your planning outlook updated on Monday evening, the 4th of November. It's an ongoing story of cold weather with east or northeasterly winds set to prevail through this week and even likely onwards into next week as well, with a very familiar weather sequence just repeating itself as areas of low pressure run in from the Atlantic, typically centering themselves across central parts of England and Wales and then pulling away toward the south. There'll be snow on higher terrain and the mountains essentially staying sub-zero most of the time. Let's start off with those temperatures, and this is the familiar 850 millibar chart. Now that's quite neatly at around 1200 to 1300 metres in the atmosphere at this stage. That's the height that we find 850 millibars. It's that common reference point that we use. And at that level, you're seeing temperatures here across Scotland falling through the day on Tuesday down to around -3, -4 at that level. And by the time we get through into Tuesday evening and night, -5 in the far north of Scotland. So Cairngorm Summit, Ben Nevis Summit, maybe around that mark as we go to Wednesday morning. We'll run the sequence on then, and you can sort of see how low pressure systems run in from the west and the cold air stays toward the north. Any milder air is squeezed very quickly away toward the south. Temperatures then at this level are staying sub-zero. You'll be looking generally at a freezing level of 700-800 metres across the Scottish Highlands, occasionally a bit lower with frost in the glens as well some nights, typically nearer to 800 to 1,000 metres as the freezing level for England and Wales. So just the higher tops typically in the Lake District and around the Snowdon range. Onwards toward the weekend, and little change in the general sequence. The cold air mass more or less hangs on, and even just to skip on very briefly to the start of next week, it's that chilly pattern with the higher mountains staying sub-zero pretty much all the way through. Let's have a look through the sequence for the next few days, and for Tuesday, low pressure toward the southeast. We've got that northeasterly wind across the country, strongest across the lakes, Pennines and Snowdonia, where up to gale force for a time at least in the morning. A front that's dragging its way southwards will produce low cloud and areas of rain, sleet and some wet snow on the higher Pennines for a time. That will tend to all fade away as the front moves southwards through Tuesday, leaving a legacy of just 1 or 2 showers. Showers of snow and hail will come into the northern side of the Highlands, maybe frequent for a time across the Cairngorms. Largely a dry day though toward the western and southwestern parts of the Highlands. Slack pressure then overnight into Wednesday with some frost where skies are clear, the risk of some mist and fog patches forming in low-lying parts. That could be stubborn into Wednesday morning. Bit of a messy day really in terms of the weather sequence. This front's trying to edge their way in from the Atlantic. A weak feature somewhere around the Irish Sea may produce some low cloud and patchy rain across the Welsh hills, trying to get in towards Galloway and the western side of the Lake District. It may only come in later in the day here. And there'll be a few residual snow flurries around across the Highlands, chiefly more towards eastern regions, but for many places it'll be a dry and bright day with some banks of cloud clinging to some of the higher tops and corries, some fog at lower levels slow to clear, but also a good amount of sunshine, if just a little bit on the hazy side. Temperatures then are on the cold side right the way through. Now just to show you the sequence of what happens then through Wednesday evening onwards, we've got a developing area of low pressure moving in across Ireland. There's still some uncertainty exactly where the track of the centre of that thing goes as it wraps itself up across the British Isles overnight. It's likely that the heaviest rain is focused across Wales and central England, but it may be that into Thursday daytime that frontal system pivots around and affects particularly Pennine areas for a good part of the day. So that's the chart that's suggested for around the middle of the day on Thursday. There's the low centred across Wales, a day where I suspect rain will come and go across the hills of Wales, some heavy bursts that might be frequent or set in for a few hours. Now the likelihood is that the heaviest, most prolonged rain is across the Pennines, focused on eastern regions. Now whether that's toward the North Pennines or a bit further south, even toward the Peak District, is up for grabs at this stage. And I suspect that there will be some pulses of rain that will run westwards across the Lake District, least of that the further west you go. To the north of that zone, across Scotland, it's an easterly wind, and we may see gales across the hills, even across the North Pennines, depending on the exact position of the low. But for the Scottish Highlands, it's essentially a story of snow flurries. The odd shower coming in from the west may be frequent across the eastern side of the Highlands, just again will depend on where the low is centred further southwards. Basically, the best chance for a dry, bright day is toward the West Highlands, a greater risk of low cloud covering the hills further east across the Highlands. Now Friday looks a little bit like Tuesday in many respects, in that the low begins to pull away toward the southeast. It leaves a legacy of a front somewhere across the Pennine areas, pulling away with time as pressure builds a little bit toward the north, and there'll be zones of snow and hail showers coming in toward the north and northeast of Scotland once again, leaving the west and southwestern side of the Highlands more likely dry with some sunshine. A chilly day again, with temperatures staying sub-zero across the mountains and the risk of strong northeasterly winds across the Pennines, the Lakes and Wales again. Now notice there's some slack pressure away toward the west, but the next low is trying to move in off the Atlantic, and that threatens as we head onwards into the weekend. Now very difficult in terms of exactly what this does, but it looks a familiar sequence to what we've seen in some recent times, where the front tries to trail in. It doesn't really make too much progress northwards. It sort of pivots as it gets into the British Isles. So on its northern side, where the air is cold, it may well give some snowfalls into the Highlands. Very difficult with the detail. Across England and Wales, it's chiefly more rain. Some snow and some sleet over the very highest tops is possible, but it just leaves a rather unpleasant day. So watch the detail, but again, it just looks as though we could be in for a lot of low cloud and a mix of rain, sleet and snow. Just see where the westerly winds are, those westerlies that often affect Scotland and bring the rain-bearing fronts into the West Highlands. They're well to the south. They're actually more affecting Southern Ireland and into the Bay of Biscay at this stage, with these low pressure systems taking that more southerly track. It's actually a sequence of weather that we've not seen at this time of year for quite a while, it must be said, so don't be caught out by that. It might be only early November, but we're talking about quite proper wintry conditions across the mountains at this stage and ongoing into next week. The difficulty is the exact detail, but if we look at the sequence, this taking you onwards through the weekend and just beyond, the next low pressure system likely to move itself across the British Isles. Temperatures may fluctuate for a time, but once again that low looks as though it wants to pull southwards, and this is, say, heading toward the middle of next week. And we just open the door once again to that northeasterly wind, so it maintains the overall cold pattern. Pressure trying to build a little bit toward the northwest, and eventually we might see a block of a high pressure get in and stop the sequence of lows coming in off the Atlantic. That's maybe a good 10 days or more away at this stage, but I think, as we've said previously, the main message to take from this is that chilly pattern, cold pattern across the mountains that is ongoing in the next week to 10 days, if not even further ahead. So stay up to date with all the forecasts updated daily on our website for your local mountain area. You can follow us on social media as well, and you can subscribe for free to our YouTube channel, and you won't miss when the videos are updated. Thanks for watching today. Bye for now.